Okay, I guess we'll get started. I know some of you haven't had a chance to meet all of you, so that's why we're having in-person meetings. And we're recording this one, so if you have friends who can't be here tonight, we'll provide you with the access. It's easy to find on our website. Just a quick introduction. Councilmember Freeman is joining us tonight. Thank you, John, for joining us. Mayor Jordan is on the East Coast right now, unable to be here. Our city treasurer is here. You kicked me in the shins about 6 weeks ago. I said, I did. That's good. That's good. No, this is a favorite part of my job because I love what I do, and this is my chance to tell you what I do. And if I'm not doing it right, it's your chance to tell me that too. So it's all good. It all works out. I didn't realize I think I've used all the experience in my whole 50-year work career, right down to delivering papers on my 10-speed. I've used all these skills since I've been here at San Juan Bautista. I had the pleasure while I was at Cal State Northridge of working for a young city next to where I grew up called Moore Park, and it incorporated in 1984. And so I started working in 1989 while I was still getting my bachelor's degree, and I had 7 employees. And I had to volunteer for 6 weeks before they would hire me, but they did. And I had 9 job titles, and managed to get my master's degree in public administration at the same time. But that working in a small city, that is unique. I worked for Salinas for 16 years before coming here, and then a retired city manager came out and had lunch. People love to have lunch with you here in San Juan Bautista. And he said, I could never do what you do, Don. I haven't written a staff report in 20 years, let alone a PowerPoint presentation. So, different skill levels. So I bring you everything I have, and it's my pleasure at age almost 60 to be able to use some of these skills. So in Salinas, I managed lots of things. I was the public works director. We had 165 employees. We had 9 assessment districts, some of them as large as 800 homes. That one in particular was built by Creek Ridge, whom you know are your neighbors to the south. So there are Creek Ridge homes all around the area. I got to know assessment districts and the way they work pretty darn good through that. Yours is a little different. Yours is called the Mellow Roos district, and I'll describe the differences. Yours is much more comprehensive, I'll say, than the specific lighting and landscape assessment district that I'm familiar with. It dates back to the 1970s. The Mellow Roos laws go back to 1982. So we're going to talk about that, but let me just touch on an agenda real quick so we know where we're going. And we'll try it this way. There you go. That should work. Here you go. So I've introduced myself and council members and others. Thank you to Rochelle and the library staff for hosting us today. We're going to talk quickly about the status of various developments around your neighborhood because there's lots of things going on. And then I'm going to get into the details on Community Facilities District Zone 2. So we have one Community Facilities District. Rancho Vista is Zone 2, Pacolis is Zone 1. So they fly under the same banner, but they have specific budgets and programs for their Zone 1 and Zone 2. And then we have questions. There'll be plenty of time for questions and answers. So I wanted to start with water and wastewater because when I interviewed for the city manager position, Councilmember Freeman asked me what my 100-day report would be. And I suggested that, hey, you guys do a fantastic job of taking care of your little town and promoting it, telling your story. But I was holding something called a condition of failure report, which is a description of this, your wastewater treatment plant. And there were 16 high-risk things that could go wrong with the wastewater treatment plant. And the report was done in 2018, and only John and another council member had seen it. Other council hadn't seen it yet because of your turnover and so forth. So my focus and promise coming from a public works background is to help resolve issues related to this. And just before I came on board, the wastewater treatment plant was inspected by the EPA and the water board, and we got a long letter of things that we needed to do to fix it. So I can't start a community meeting without telling you that water and wastewater has been one of my biggest priorities, even higher than COVID to some extent. We are coming, after 2 years of planning and making decisions, we're going to be coming forward. We have a town hall meeting October 7th to discuss how we're going to move forward and what our options are and what our solutions are. to resolve problems. We under an agreement with the EPA to bring our systems into compliance by December 2023. And when I say in compliance, we've been guilty of putting too much salt in the water and putting that water into a creek. So we get fined every month $3,000 for doing that. And so since 2007, so that's our whole deal. And that's been one of my biggest focuses, is bringing both new fresh water into the city that has less salt, and then exporting our wastewater to Hollister rather than putting it down the creek. We're going to have a long discussion about that on October 7th, which is a culmination of about 2 years' work. The second bullet here is it refers to our addition of our new assistant city manager, who has 30 years experience in community development. And when I was hired, I was told I needed an assistant either in public works or community development. And I'm sure glad I got help in community development, because this is the most active part of the legislation in Sacramento, the new laws and the new changes. And the trends over the years have been to resolve the state's housing crisis. So what they're doing effectively in a lot of different ways, the most recent example is SB 9. They're taking local control away from land use. And you need to be able to defend yourselves against that, and you need to be able to stick up for yourself. And so accessory dwelling units or granny flats, some of your homes include these already. This is a series of about 7 laws since 2017 that were adopted. And if we don't go in and modify those for our own design standards and our own parking standards and other things, then we have to be following the state's rules, and we want more control over that, especially in our historic areas of our city. Short-term rentals is another thing that we're moving forward with. In fact, Councilmember Freeman inspired us to extend our transit occupancy tax to the Airbnb. But there's also issues related to short-term rentals lately. If you've heard, they turn into party houses over the weekend and other things. So we're bringing forward a whole set of regulations and process to follow for having Airbnb in town. We're also getting our home occupations up to speed. No one has looked at them recently. We've had people, for example, a guy who cleans pools storing chlorine in his garage. We had to help him make other arrangements so he could store his chlorine in a safe place and not next door to you guys. So that's just an example of some of the stuff we're doing with home occupations. Urban growth boundary is something I'm told is going to launch any minute, and EJ has been reading about this. He's been studying about because EJ was appointed our newest member, along with Councilmember Edge, Councilmember Freeman, Commissioner Luis McShane, and Commissioner Jackie Morris Lopez. So the 5 are looking at how the city will grow and what the city's sphere of influence will be. So this is a committee that's designed to look at managed growth in our city rather than out of control sprawl. That was something really important in Moore Park. Moore Park grew from 3,000 to 30,000 in 15 years. And I don't think we want that here. We want to stay small, and we're best when we're small. And so that's the purpose. That's what the majority, if we're going to grow, how are we going to grow? So we have a fund here in our budget of $100,000 to fund this work. And we also have $100,000 in our budget to fund the 3rd Street Master Plan, which is the big question. What are we doing with parklets? Are they permanent? Well, they appear to be permanent. I know they float, so if we had a flood, but currently they're sitting on water mains and other things. And so we have an active business forum that meets. They met this morning about parklet design and parklet design guidelines in the future of parklet. But that'll all transform into a master plan for all of 3rd Street. So we're launching that our first year. So our community development director has been really busy working on these programs. I'm going to talk briefly about Elite Homes, which is this vacant land here in front of our wastewater treatment plant between 3rd and the structures up on the hill. I'll touch bases quickly on the Loaiza subdivision, which are those properties across the street from San Juan Highway, and Meritage real quick. So let me get to those because we need to save time for you. The biggest question is the roundabout. What's happening with the roundabout? We thought we had this nailed in February. This is the Loaiza's property up here, 16 acres, and this is Rancho Vista. The Loaizas are to dedicate this piece of property to the city so that Meritage can come in and build the roundabout. So we've only recently come to a point where we're negotiating agreements. We have signed what's called a reimbursement agreement with Meritage to help other developers to come into town, pay for this construction. But now we're working on an agreement with the Loazas and Meritage called a license agreement. The Meritage can come on this property and construct it until such a time that Loazas dedicate it to the city. So this has been a real effort. It's been a real struggle. But I think this afternoon we actually had a final agreement between Loaza and Meritage that they would sign. So we keep our fingers crossed. I was out this morning taking pictures, and they were out there with the spray cans marking the utilities, getting ready to start construction, maybe as soon as next week. So I signed a letter today from the city engineer, wrote for me to the neighborhood, saying construction is going to start, and as soon as we get a start date, I think sometime tomorrow, we'll get that out to you. So that roundabout is finally coming. And thank you for your patience. I just, real quick, it was approved for landscaping that matches the Rancho Vista development. At a time when we agreed to what the gateways will look like at all 3 points, Monterey Street and the Alameda, that we would have a matching monument of some sort that would go in the center of this, assuming it fits, to say welcome to San Juan Bautista, because I get comments from other neighborhoods all the time that it looks like it's welcome to the city of Rancho Vista, because this is what it's in here. So we got to do something. No offense, but we got to do something about that. So this is the eucalyptus trees on 3rd Street, with Donner being at the corner. And the trailside development are 27 single-family homes on lots of 4,000 square feet. They'll all fit somehow between 3rd Street and the wastewater treatment plant. And they are they're to do a couple things when they come to develop. So when I got here in 2019, this housing tract was all approved, meaning that they had gone through the entitlement process and the maps have been approved. And so we thought that Elite Development was just going to sell the whole package to someone else to develop, which is what happened to your community. Meritage was not the originator of that. It was a different developer. Nonetheless, there are certain conditions, whether Elite Development builds this or not. I've hardly heard a word from them in 3 years. They're out there, they're interested, they trim their weeds, that kind of thing, but they're not coming to City Hall to find out what the next steps are after several invitations. So they're to widen 3rd Street down here at the end here. It's very narrow, and they're to widen it and then make it so people can park and actually fit 2 cars at once down 3rd Street. And they're to put in a roundabout. And this is going to cause a lot of traffic and dust and chaos for you guys, especially if you live near this intersection. So as soon as we learn more and hear from Elite Homes about the trailside development, we'll be sure and let you know. But right now it's dormant. You have a question?
So are they going to take that eucalyptus tree out right?
So we've been studying the eucalyptus trees after a meeting like this with the Creek Bridge community on Vista, because they're correct. The eucalyptus trees predate the district. So it'll take city funds to deal with the trees, but an arborist report came in a month ago stating that they were not safe the way they are. So what we're going to do is cut these 2 down to the base, and then when they put in the roundabout, we'll remove the stumps, because we'll have the big equipment out there to remove the stumps. So we are in the process of getting 3 bids to actually take these 2 big ones down. And then there's a 3rd one across the street, and the community would like us to manicure that one and cut it back so we can keep it. So as long as we can do that, we will. It sits about right over here on the other side of the street. But the limb from that one did fall on the house there, so that's why when we started. Sure.
So obviously that roundabout, where is it going? Like there's new buildings right across the street. Like right on the street.
Right. So all it's doing is helping direct traffic between Donner and 3rd.
Where is the entrance?
It's like it's going to end up in the property.
I have a little bit more experience in this because I was here for.
Right, thank you, John.
So the real reason for the roundabout is to route the traffic up into the, I call it the DM Roadshow development, now what's it called, Elite? Okay, anyway, so originally the Elite development was gonna have I think it still is, the road with a loop around there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 11 acres back there, and you'll often see me walking my dog. Okay, so on the Elite development, he'll be really upset with how. Anyway, commission cut it down to 27, which I think is much more appropriate. But we'll still need the roundabout because those people will need access to their home.
And one more question.
Okay.
I promise it's not.
That's okay.
So will we put the roundabout in first or the house? So
Yes.
if he's finding more roundabout is going in.
Well, and this is critical because these lots and the placement of these homes exactly are going to respond and rely on the location of the roundabout. So this one is more integrated into the neighborhood. And that's part of the complication we're having with the ways that they want to subdivide their property as well. So they have an application, a tentative map to create 4 single-family lots, but eventually they would like a dozen. So how are we going to enter into their neighborhood and enter into their homes? Because their homes don't exit into the roundabout. We didn't like that idea. So they enter into a cul-de-sac. So that's a good question. The roundabout needs to come first.
Okay.
And that's a,
Having not seen the subdivision map that was proposed for Elite, does the creekside area along the walking trail on Trails Lake Court remain intact?
yes, because you have the wastewater treatment plant in between.
Yes.
So there's a road that will go adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
And if we are successful with our project at Hollister, we're going to shut that thing down.
A quick question, is this widened Third Street? There was a little
Yes.
section there are
Yes.
houses.
That back in this area is really narrow.
Right.
Yeah.
That won't be touched because all the houses are there.
Well, they're able to widen the street by removing part of the landscape sidewalk so that there's room for two-way traffic and parking.
What's called the median.
Yeah.
A previous city manager told me it would be better than canned beer, and I disagree. So,
Were there any more questions before I get into the?
Where is the entrance to our development?
Oh, this Third Street. So this is coming right. This house in the corner here is the last house built in Minnesota.
What's that bottom left corner is where that tree is.
Right. Down in here. I see. Yeah. So you have roundabouts on each side.
And it looks like most of the land for the roundabout is coming from that open lot area, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Or it's flat. Good.
That one is gonna do the Ramaram, they're gonna do it before the construction, houses.
Yeah, that's what her question was.
Okay, another question is, what can happen with the car, this party, you know, there's not a little block.
Uh-huh.
What can happen with this car is parking all over there in that street? Because the street is too narrow.
Too narrow. So
And
that-
that's the problem for after they do the Ramaram, it's gonna be a problem with those cars parking there.
And so that's what we were talking, widening that part of the street is also conditioned. And we can do that without impacting the home. That's the way it's designed. So that's further down the road here, or back up in here. And it's a condition for them to widen the road. By removing the planters and the sidewalk, we can do that and just shorten the driveway about 5 feet. So it's possible. It's what the engineers tell me. I'm not an engineer.
So given that the project is coming and have the developer said potentially when it's gonna start?
No, I haven't.
It's been up in the air for a while already.
Yeah,
so-
it's in a stable place. It has value. It could be sold the way it is because they're entitled to these 27 homes. So I thought maybe the economy was strong enough before COVID to move this forward, but I guess not. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it's the correct thing is. Some of the same individuals are still. Okay. Okay, I'm going to move on to the facilities district. So before development is approved, the city is asking the developer to form a community facilities district zone to maintain the special needs of the specific community. And in this case, when Rancho Vista was approved, the city manager at the time asked that everything be taken care of by your facilities district. So whereas we have a grounds maintenance crew and we have a streets crew, the same crew, water and sewer, to help take care of what we can in the area. And then we hire contractors, arborists, or whomever to come in to trim trees and so forth. in this case, the district will pay for that in your neighborhood. And I've learned a lot in the last week getting ready for this report, but let you know that the district is formed by a vote of the property owners. So that vote occurs before the land is subdivided. So it's an election with two people, husband and wife maybe, and they vote for it, and it gets approved, and then they subdivide the lot into the 85 lots that make up Rancho Vista. So it's based on a list of services to be provided, and then an engineer gives us a cost estimate. So that happened for your district in 2018 when your map was approved. So this is a map of your neighborhood. This is Trailside Drive. This is where Donner and 3rd Street is. The map is incorrect. That's 3rd Street, so if you widen. And then you can see your home is one of these parcels for sure. And so that's the map that gets approved for your subdivision. And from that, we go to what is known as a formation report. And this is considered by the City Council in 2018. And it's a study by engineers. And it talks about the different elements of your community facilities district. So there's a description of services, there's proposed boundaries, which are the same as that map, the cost of services, and then it prepares a budget, a 2018 budget, and then it allocates the costs to what are known as equivalent dwelling units. So each house is a EDU, an equivalent dwelling unit. And if you had a property in your district, and this is true next door, where they have granny flats, they're allocated 1.5 EDUs. But they didn't do that here. Each home, whether you have an accessory dwelling unit, granny flat or not, it's considered 1 EDU. So that's a way to equalize it in case there are different sizes and kinds of properties within a single district. So that's the rate and the method and the technical parts of how the district comes together. And these are the things, if you can read it, the things that your district pays for, including the landscape maintenance, the park maintenance, recreational equipment, streets and sidewalks. That's what's unusual. Usually that's the city's job. Curb gutter, that's usually the city's job to pay for. Street lighting, that's typical because they're usually called lighting and maintenance districts. Storm drain, sound wall, fencing, graffiti abatement, mosquito abatement. And it's actually, the list is bigger than that, and we'll talk about budget in a little bit. But in 2018, this is the way it was proposed, and this is what was approved for the neighborhood that you bought into. And I know when you buy a house, you have a stack of papers this big, and your hands are tired from signing all the documents.
The storm drain is maintained by the city.
Right. And that means essentially that the city will hire a contractor if it needs work. Storm drains need to be cleaned in the fall and then maybe checked during the winter, but they're pretty easy, especially compared to the sewer lift station. So these are some pictures I nabbed this morning. It's a beautiful morning in your neighborhood that shows some of the things that the district pays for. This is the Jim West Park. It's tucked over on Trailside Road. This is an example of landscaping and fencing and this little bridge over by the entrance in La Benigno and across from the cul-de-sac. This is a beautiful time of day for these homes, these street trees and so forth. When they're in front of the home, they are not the district's responsibility. When they're on the side, they are the district's responsibility. This is a picture of our sewer lift station. You may have seen alarms here. We have numerous complications with the lift station, mostly because people are flushing rubber gloves and other things into their toilets. Occasionally we send out letters asking you not to do that. So this is critical. This is one of the most critical pieces in your neighborhood from our point of view, from a health and safety point of view.
Can I ask a question for you?
Sure.
You said when the trees and things are on the side of the home and it's close to the front, CIP is supposed to take care of it. That includes weeds as well.
Yeah.
Not no.
Well, so I have learned a lot. So I'm learning as we go too. I'm learning about your district and where you are. And this is that same map. And here's that same strip of property here. And then along in here and along in here. And I did notice a lot of weeds in there. So we did meet with our landscape maintenance provider. And they are now going to start paying attention to these.
Awesome.
They have mowed and taken care of the swale here. They are going to be cutting the weeds in this retention basin here because these weeds are fairly tall. There's no access to this. You have to put a gate in the fence first.
What is that area?
These are retention ponds from when it rains.
Yeah.
So the stormwater comes down the creek here, comes down the creek and then comes down this way, and these are to hold it on the same property as the map is shown. That's a requirement in most California laws now, that we treat the stormwater on site.
I just want to let you know, you can take care of it after. Last rain we had in January, when that pond next to the playground fills up. No, below, right there. When that fills up, it actually rises over the sidewalk and it floods the sidewalk into the detention basin, or retention pond. And that storm drain or the bubble up, it just, all it does is flood. There's no flow of trees.
So, okay, I've seen some of that myself, especially right here. And it just come right over the top. I have pictures of that.
I'm just worried if you have that 100-year storm, there's a problem.
So I was out there about 6 weeks ago, and there was a big truck here on Nino, a huge truck. It's called a back truck, and I thought our crew had asked it to come out, but no, the developer had, and they had problems with the wastewater and the storm line, and that was a big giant vacuum sucking stuff out of the pipe. So right now, Meritage is pressuring us to accept these public improvements. We accepted the landscaping because if we didn't, we were afraid it would die. But these things like the storm drain and the sewer system, those haven't been accepted yet, and they don't meet our standards. So if I got 200 emails today, 50 of them came from a guy named John Chuckers. I don't know if you've met him. He's a real chunk. Meritage is one of the fourth largest developers in the state. Yeah. We've got a great inspector. We've got a great inspector. Sir?
On that creek. I'm walking alongside it, and there's a lot of debris in it that could cause a buildup.
Uh-huh.
During the heavy rains, all that water will just come up and over the street and downhill.
And that's a really good point. Along in here, where John's wife and the daughter walk every day.
I would add, that's not a hypothetical, that is actually happening.
It's actually out there.
So, yeah.
He's absolutely correct. I mean, don't say, oh, no, it's not gonna happen.
Because it gets trapped here? It gets trapped here?
Yeah.
Everything got backed up.
So,
Yeah, I know.
That street that you're talking, the little walkway, was under about a foot of water.
So you guys, I'm sorry for taking a interrupt, but you need to know that there was a lot of engineering that went into this, and I'm not an engineer. So I don't know if it was done correctly or incorrectly. It took a year and a half for them to engineer the stormwater, and there's a huge concrete, I call it a diverter, because I don't know what the real word is, but the water comes this way and it makes it go that way down the creek in the front. And like I said, it took a year and a half before any foundation or any piece of wood was ever built in your community of just stormwater engineering and construction. They had giant backhoes out there forever. And as you guys have seen, it still doesn't really work.
So, and a lot of that, I'll be honest with you, in my opinion, has to do with the contractor not grading the detention basin correctly.
the top one?
Yes. There's no flow, it just stands there, and until it gets to a certain height, then it goes over the hump and goes right up the creek. I mean, is it meant to detain that water into the water table back? I don't know. But I've never seen a detention pond not divert water correctly as it's supposed to. This one I've never seen something like it.
Okay.
The way it performs, that's last one.
Okay, thank you. That's really good information for me.
This landscape, sorry, that's all front yards. The blue should be here, and the blue should be here, not here.
Oh, okay, I haven't confused with lot A, quote, lot A,
Yeah.
okay, okay, so.
Just that one little piece.
Yeah, just a little.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, that's your house. Yeah. Oh, from there, okay. Yeah, well, I gave them that, okay, so it shows you what I know, I've been out there twice, in a week, and I still don't have it down yet. So, I did verify that cleaning these storm drains is something we are supposed to do, and do close attention. So that is something that we can do between now and the next one. 2017, did we hear 2017? Oh, yeah, that was the worst, okay. Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, I'm on 12 of 23. Right, so this is intended, this basin here, this swale here along Thelma Highway is intended to capture the rainwater and let it percolate down. The exercise station's pretty cool. I didn't see anyone using it. Okay, and
So does Councilman Fritz.
and Friels, okay, and we've been dumping the trash for you, and hopefully that's okay. You have to watch out for poison oak as you get done. Okay. So, this is the exciting part for me. This is the budget. And what you have on top is the operation cost that they estimated in 2018. And then down below, you have annual capital replacement reserve. And because this district is responsible for these streets and storm drains and sewer systems, it asked for a large reserve in capital, 48,000 out of a total 92. So it's almost $100,000 district, and almost 50% they're asking or suggesting that we put aside for reserves. So that if we lose a street, if we lose if we have to redo that storm drain and spend $500,000 on it in 10 years, we have the $500,000 because we've been putting the 50,000 aside. And I took a hard look at that because I found it hard to believe myself. That's 50% is a lot. And guess what? We're not bringing in 92. We're not bringing in 92, you guys. 48 is reserved. 92 was the estimated cost. And these are the types of things that it's taken care of. That sewer lift station, all 37 street lights, sound walls and fencing. How long does the sound wall last if a car doesn't hit it? Or, graffiti doesn't wear it out. So this is a summary of what that reserve looks like. 17,000 for landscape improvements, irrigation, and so forth. Street lighting improvements. The street bulbs have a 5-year life, but the pole, how long does the pole last? Yes, you have sound wall. Well, they're listed. Well,
I think Selma would cover.
thank you.
Thank you. I drive by there almost every day.
Thank you.
I don't.
Okay, not long. Did you have a question?
I'm sorry, everyone. You have a list of things that this number covers, and you said some of the items were unusual to implement. Can it be amended to go back to the?
It can be amended by a vote of the community, of the members of the district. The same way it was formed.
No, I meant some of the things that we covered, can we push it back on with the vote?
If you voted not to cover them, then you're asking the city's resources to do it. So the intention here is that you have control. If you want to surrender that control to the city, I'm not sure. I've always thought of it the other way around. If we wanted to add or include, if we wanted to put in a gazebo or a community center and amend the district to include the value of that. I've never thought of it the other way around. I've heard of one example. During the moratorium, when you couldn't build in Hollister, a number of these little districts went up all around the county and in the corporate areas. Rancho is one example where they have a district to take care of their wastewater. And they decided not to fund it anymore. And it flooded last February. And EPA didn't like that. So now they're funding their district again. And they actually asked me if San Juan would help them, and I said, we've got our own issues. So sorry. But what about this reserve? And what have we been asking for? So when the district was established, the original estimate So that we would need to have a fee, an annual fee for each homeowner of about $1,091. And the district earns cost of living or 2% increase every year. So that's automatic. That doesn't need to be approved by you. That was approved with the original district was formed. So in the first year, we saw it jump up to a possibility of 1133 from 1091. But in that first year, we only brought in $56,000 because we only had 59 lots built out of 85. So the first year, 1920, is not a real good example. But let me walk you through. And I'm not sure why this happened. I'm not sure why this happened, but in the second year, 2021, and I was working here then, the recommended fee was $678, almost half of what the engineer estimated in 2018. So in 2021, your annual assessment was $678.32. Not clear why. It could have been as high as $1155, which would have been a 2% increase. So we built for 85 lots, all of them. We got a revenue of 57. And remember that as engineer's estimate was 92. So last year was the first year we had landscape expenses, and Smith and Enright, a very experienced company, and they're giving us a good price. Although we're rebidding it, we should rebid it every few years. So they cost us about $37,000 with a little bit of PG&E. So this is a lot less than the operational expense, but it's not enough to get that reserve set aside. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you today and get your opinion on. We increased it 2% up to $768 this year. So we did give you an increase this year, the cost of living, and we estimate a revenue of $65.32. So we're going from 57 to 65. We could have billed almost $1,200, and we would have gotten past that $100,000 figure. So when all is said and done, this money is kept by the city, required by law to be kept in a special fund. This is something we tried to teach the city treasurer. So special funds are like bank accounts, and when government is accused of working in silos, because we're working in a little financial silo. So this assessment district, this facilities district, we keep all this money collected in a single place, so that at the end of the year you carry a balance forward. So the balance we carried forward into the new fiscal year is about $47,000, which is not bad considering we were only asking for half of what the assessment was. So this is what the budget looks like for the engineer's report came forward, and this is what the budget looks like for this fiscal year, 21-22, and there's a $28,000 capital reserve here to put aside in case something big breaks. So this is the 58,716. So, and that allows us about $10,000 for an operations reserve as well. And the operations reserve is important because we have a cash shortfall where we get the last property payments are received in April and May, and then we don't get them again until December. So we need a little bit of operational reserve so we can carry that cash flow into the new calendar year. So I have copies of this for people. And this is the most dorky, interesting thing. This is, and we can pass these out.
Wait, so I have a question. So about that reserve, what if we make up for this reserve one time, and then all of a sudden, every year we just fund this reserve over and over, and it starts to grow out of control?
Oh.
Right. So am I always gonna be playing catch up and just spending money just to put it, like in those pockets somewhere? Are we gonna stop it, or?
That's the same question. Isn't it a reserve like that? The district puts the cap on it. Every 10 years, we get grants that are good. We get your assessment. We did that in after we did the assessment. They had a efficient gain mitigation measure.
This is called operating.
10 years.
And when do you relook at that cap, or when do you get a?
I'm gonna go into more detail on
Sorry,
that.
I can't hear this next question.
Okay.
So again, when do we, so if we get funding this reserve, when can we look at it again to say, hey, like this reserve has way too much money, we're not gonna continue to keep paying. Like, for me, in other words, I don't mind a hike to catch us up and get us there, but once we hit it, that's it, I don't wanna pay for the rest. Like, we hit it, that's it, for the reserve. I don't want to keep funding a reserve every year, just for shits and giggles. You know,
It's a reserve, it's a set amount or it's a percentage?
So the reserve is, well, it's a set amount based on the list I just gave you.
I think.
Yeah, I got
Properly.
What?
There's different pages.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. It should be a longer list. Did I make sure? Did I give you the wrong list? Oh, I'm sorry, it's down two. Can you share? I messed up. I'm sorry.
I can.
I'm on the website, so.
There you go. There you go. What's interesting about this answers your question, sir.
Oh.
Wait, I have another question, sorry.
Oh, if I could just get through a few more slides, I'll show you what a geek I am. What this does is it gives you a cycle, right? So where your irrigation controllers are 15-year life, your sound wall is 50 years. Well, I've got square feet of sound wall here at 18,000. So it's out there somewhere. Wooden wire fencing, split rail, fitness station. Your fitness station is $5,500. It's good for 12 years. And if that life cycle that I'm interested in, at what time will that fitness station go down and you need to buy a new one? I think that's when I think about your reserve, I think about it that way. When are you going to need to replace it? And so what I did was I took the list, and hopefully everyone can see this. This is the list of the various things, landscape, street lights, and sidewalks. And then I made columns across the top from 0 to 5 all the way up to 50 years. And what's cool, I'm sorry. For my next group, yeah.
Do you have any more zone two?
I don't. I don't have any more with me. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is on the website. But look at this analysis, if you will, for just a minute. How much money will you need in the first 5 years? It comes down to about $5,500. And as I ran these totals for each one of these, and I started to stack them up one at a time, I got over here to 40 to 55 years, and this total here is about half. So most of the value in the assets that you're presently reserved for, to answer your question, won't begin to be needing replacement until after 50 years. So you have 2.6 million in assets out there, and most of the big ticket items are in the 50-year column. So you need to be saving $50,000 a year for the next 52.5 years. That's what 2.6 million divided by 50. And that's like forever, right? That's 52 years. I mean, that's in today's dollars. It could be, but I'm telling you that if you just take a little bit of care of your streets and you paint your light poles, they'll last hundreds of years, as we've seen in other places.
Now, the sound wall budget in, that's a large chunk on that top portion.
The landscape.
So if we don't have a sound wall, would that bring it?
Well, I can look that up. Yeah, I can look that up for you.
But we don't have a sound wall.
That's what I'm saying, we don't have it, so
The line is, yeah, we don't have.
So these are the notes. These are the notes from 2018 that were done, and that's what it's based on. Is there any fencing, how many trees,
The only question, John, is that most of us have is, what is the sound wall line item about, and should it or can it be removed? If those dollars are actually being allocated somewhere else, that's fine.
Right.
It's just inaccurate. We don't actually have it.
There's number 7 on this list, so I have to go back
I
and
don't
check.
see retaining walls on here.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I
think it's just mislabeled.
I'll have to see.
We do have a lot of retaining.
So the wall between the Mannings and
Yeah,
the
it might just be a
development.
mislabel. It could have been meant to be retaining wall, which would make sense why they're more expensive.
It's a cinder
Retaining wall,
block.
way more expensive.
It's a cinder block wall as compared to the cool white fence.
For
Yeah.
those of you who live on the west side of your development, there's a huge, I
Right, so that's a cinder block wall. So, but I think it's interesting to see how this breaks down between the first 45 years and the last 50 years.
Oh, sorry.
If you come in, you'll see it.
Uh-huh.
I have a quick question. With the street light, right now, there's 2 mailboxes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then they have a street light, they just missed that mailbox. So is it, can we ask the developer to come and then put the light box, the street light near the mailbox?
Yeah, let me, I'll take a note, and that's part of accepting the public improvements. If they missed something, then they
Yeah,
could point that
because
out.
before we accept the house, we mentioned to them this mailbox is only 2 on the development. And we said, well, in the night, and the people will walk, park the car and walk the walk. And they said, oh, it's not done yet, we're gonna finish this area.
Okay,
I never saw them.
so that's our punch list. That's where our public inspectors
Don't
stand.
say that.
So,
Don't say that.
so,
I got a question. The homes that are going to be built in the future, how would that phase with no?
they would have to form that when their own elevator.
So there will be part of
No, you can come up with their own geographic area. Yeah, and this kind of recaps some of the numbers that I was going over. 2.6 million in assets. It would take, that equals 50,000 a year, would be about 52.35 years. But the 40 years, first 40 years covers about 90% of the stuff you have out there. So half of the asset value have an expected life of more than 50 years. So what we did in our budget was we set aside 28,000, and that's actually, if we did 28,000 for 40 years, that would get you home. So so the question is, I think you introduced there. Okay, I'm sorry. The question is, in summary, the district is new, so it's not too late to make changes that are meaningful, right? You're 2.5 to 3 years old. We began charging the maximum, then we put back for 2 years, so we could go back to the maximum, and we could go anywhere in between. The district receives about 70% of the revenue needed for that 50,000 a year reserve. So if we wanted to take that to 100%, we could. Recommend working back to that fully funded reserve. I'm just suggesting that instead of going just cost of living, you go cost of living plus 5% or cost of living plus 10%. To try and get back to where that reserve is back to where it was recommended in 2018. And so it doesn't have a cap, so how much is enough? I almost started to think of a catastrophic insurance policy. If we lose a well, we can go to our insurance carrier and they'll pay for the pumps. You know, we put them my way for it, but they'll pay for that. So right now we're working off of cost of living increases, and I just want, this is my last slide. I just wanted to hear from the community what you thought, and we got Jose's feedback, and it'd be great for me to hear what the rest of you are thinking. So I just wanted to leave this for you, and I have about 15 copies of this page with the website on it so that you can find these documents. And let me grab a pencil.
I really don't want to write this one down, Don. You never hear from me again. So my first comment is that meetings like this, transparency, laying out the numbers and allowing us to ask questions is probably 80% of what most of us want. And so I personally appreciate this, having a forum to be able to understand the numbers, you know, before they're assessed, and then have some dialogue back and forth. And I think the way you laid it out makes a lot of sense to me. And as long as we continue to ask questions about what's going on and have that dialogue back and forth, that I personally would be happy.
And these meetings probably should occur like in February, March, as we're working on our budgets. So that way we're not just throwing a number out there and asking you to respond to it. That way we're coming up with the number together. That would be my preference.
Just a comment. A couple of days ago, we met the city worker supervisor.
Yeah.
Nick.
Yeah.
So he mentioned that the developer hasn't handed over the landscaping to the city yet.
Well, he has handed over at least taken care of the landscape.
So the developer still, the Meritage still
So things are under warranty. If trees die, if irrigation goes bad, then they replace them for us. But he simply didn't have the staff to stay on top of it. It was dying faster than.
Has the city,
So we stepped up.
has the city accepted the street?
No,
No paving the street?
no, we haven't accepted any of the pavement, any of the hardscape.
When we're all done, I'll talk to you.
Sure,
Hopefully they'll point out.
okay. And the
The
light,
street lights
street
are
light.
does anybody has complained in the winter time? The mailboxes don't get much light.
So is there supposed to be a street light there?
Yeah, I think the lights.
Yeah, it did,
Oh,
at
okay,
least the one that I noticed is like on our side.
We have 3 now.
Yeah, no, you're correct, yeah, it's hard to see the
number.
Yeah, because it was
It's
just
from
from
the
the
park, yeah.
park, and then the street light just missed it.
Yeah, even when, yeah, well, it's back by 6 times.
That would be, that would be the ball.
the street lights are all behind the mailboxes. Have like an overhead
Yeah, and then-
or something like that.
Yeah, and they're
And
not even
over the
close
face
to
of the
the
mailbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not even close to it.
Yeah. Well, the plans were hopefully built, yeah, if it wasn't built to plan, I could fix it. If they built it to plan, I'm stuck. But I'll look into it. I haven't looked.
You know, I don't really understand, I mean, I'm finished speaking, understand more, about how mellow Bruce works.
Uh-huh.
And it's something that's assessed every year, and it can only go up. Right, I mean,
Well,
realistic cost.
there are a few examples that can go down.
But is there a way to pay it off, like, if I own my house, or some of the neighbors have this, I understand what you're saying, like, yeah, it's like a bond, and if you wanted to, you could pay it off, when you sold your house, it would be more available use. Is that a true statement?
That's not the nature of this district. This district is in place forever. So when you bought the house, you agreed to participate in it. And so it's paying for operational and reserves for things going forward, expenses going forward. It's not paying off the debt, not paying off the debt service. Sometimes we borrow money and then you pay Melrose to repay the loan. So if the developer couldn't afford these improvements, you'd be paying off the loan as part of your house. But you're in better shape than actually you're paying forward. So there's no interest to worry about, there's no debt service to pay. It's just simply the cost of the landscape firm, the cost of the irrigation and electricity and water and so forth. But those are the regular maintenance issues that are part of the maintenance budget. It's about $20,000 to $30,000, about $20,000 a year, which is a pretty good price for the size of the district.
And is that similar to like a HOA, homeowner association?
When we buy a house in the newer neighborhoods, there are covenants, codes, and restrictions, CCNRs, and they sometimes will require a homeowners association. And I don't know that that's true. You don't have a homeowners association. No.
No, but this is.
This is like your homeowners association because you guys all have equal share. If you all own one house anyway, you all have equal share. So you as the board of directors.
We do have the ability to form architectural,
Design group,
something or other.
Architectural approval can be.
Yeah.
which might be important for accessory dwelling unit. You know, you don't want a caveman, or whatever going up in the backyard next door. You want something that at least matches the house that's there, the same color.
That's okay, but I do park.
Well, I would not. Sorry. Yeah. Let's see, in the back.
Is this presentation available on the internet so we can look at it? It's a little bit difficult in this distance. to
Sure.
Totally understand it.
I meant to hit one page. So I spent an hour this afternoon manually cabling these. I didn't want to throw them
Don't
out.
go to the city meetings. Don always has great PowerPoint.
I didn't want to throw them out.
You say it is recorded though. Oh, it's greenhouse.
Yeah. And there were more questions, right, ma'am?
I would like there to be a possibility from the door plant, water treatment plant. Behind me is open space, and I have a really tall fence. And after I moved in, about a month or two after I moved in, the landscaper put in these huge trees very close they are leaning, like, the trees are so close to the fence, they're still eventually beyond. The trees are very close together. I actually kind of walked back there and pulled off the tag. The finest trees, they're very invasive. They go after water and foundation. When I looked it up on the internet, the sprinklers, they don't have drip systems. The sprinklers are running, they're on my fence. Like on my side of the fence, I see like some discoloration.
So you have the one where Nick put a cone on top of the sprinkler?
I didn't do anything to the sprinkler.
No, Nick, our superintendent.
Wait, what happened?
He put a cone on top of the sprinkler to prevent it from hitting the fence.
Okay.
And I'm trying to tell him that there's a better answer.
Yeah, so I see like tiny things on my side of the fence for in the front section.
So-
I called the city once. Some maintenance guy came out and he said, he'd adjust it, but then somebody adjusted it back. And now it's seeing like wet fencing again.
Okay.
I'm concerned about those trees. I spent a lot of money in landscape. And I don't want their roots to come and start busting my neighbors or go after my foundation.
Those trees are a result of a compromise that was made, and John knows more about this than myself, but the Creek Ridge neighborhood was very unhappy with the location of those homes, what they thought were on top of theirs. And so they requested as a mitigation measure to have those trees planted and that open space created to create a buffer between their backyard and your backyard.
So they created a wall of trees instead of a buffer.
Who owns that buffer?
That's open space that's part of the district.
So then what can be done to like, I guess, help her out with her problem? Can we get them removed or put further down so that it's not hitting her?
I think the best answer would be to move them further from the fence.
Yeah.
So is that possible? Who would pay for that? When would that, what
Right.
timeline would that look like?
Right. I'd have to think about that one. My knee-jerk reaction is the district could pay for that.
I think there's 100 trees.
Yeah, no, I've seen them. I was back there earlier this
They're
week.
so close together. There's no allowance for them to do that. Yeah.
Some of the Creek Ridge people that live right next to me, very adamant and quite upset. So that's what happened.
Was it American that sold the tree?
No, it wasn't.
We'll just keep that under the. I have a question.
So we can definitely adjust the irrigation and possibly move the trees away from the fence.
Thank you, John.
Do you have another question?
Yes, well, see,
What about the big field at the end of Trailside Court that goes to the freeway? Is that open for development out there, all that?
that's not technically within the city's incorporated boundaries. But rather than put road ends here, we have an issue on Main Street now where people think it's like the end of their property when actually the road could go into that vacant land. So that's why it's signed the way it is. But no, that's outside the city boundaries and there's no proposal to develop that land or for it to be annexed into the city's boundaries.
It's privately owned.
Yeah, part of the owned. Part of the owned.
Christopher used to have the house at the end of 11 and
Beautiful house. Yeah.
if I believe it's sold, correct?
There's been a lot of activity out there.
Yeah, is it gonna be a private person living there, do you know, or?
That's also outside the city.
Oh, it's
boundaries.
outside your zone.
Yeah,
maybe
so I don't know
property,
if the
yeah.
property
Somebody is living in.
Yeah,
Yes, you know.
yeah.
No. No. So, that's unfortunate, or fortunate, yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
For $30,000 or whatever landscaping, which I think is great. I'm just saying because it's crazy, just because I walk the neighborhood, I see dead plants, I see like things just looking like bad.
Okay.
We have like those poles that you're telling me now that it's information that those trees that are sitting on the side of the plant, those little posts that hold them up, crack over, they're falling. Matter of fact, mine just cracked and falling over. And for $30,000, no one's addressed all that. So how is it that we're paying all that? And then you guys, we're paying a crazy amount of money and it just looks like crap. So how do we get that resolved, and where do I submit an issue or a case or something to say, hey, this isn't being done right, this hasn't been taken care of, because I'm not gonna sign off on $30,000 and pay more Melrose, and then it still looks like crap. Also, like the streets too, the paint's chipping off, I haven't seen it, over by the roundabout that we're supposed to have for the Louisa subdivision, there's a piece of cement that has not even been laid there, that you can't even walk the sidewalk over. I mean, for $30,000, got the street light pole, yeah, so for all this money that we're just paying up front and it's coming out, before I even want to say I approve to pay even more to get the reserves, I want to see all this stuff done. Because, I mean, how are we gonna give you guys more money and then all of a sudden, like, it still looks the same, you know what I mean? Like, and then the other question too is, yeah, it sounds great to add lights for the mailboxes, do all this stuff, but who's gonna pay for it? So now is my Melrose gonna go even higher because we gotta go add all that on top of the deficit that we're in? So there's a lot of concerns over all this.
Some of it you're saying is that I believe should be put back on American, or the sidewalk, use the footprint. But that would be anything roundabout. But some of the stuff I agree with you.
So you're torturing our poor city manager, if you really like him, we don't want you.
I
We don't want you to torture him.
I like him, I'm just saying, like, if we're gonna pay all this, I wanna make sure that the money's actually being used and actually.
I understand.
So, I have a question.
I understand completely.
So,
A lot of it falls back on Americans, the property developer. She, whatever, should have handed to us, to you, a completed project that looked really nice, worked really nice, and is really nice. And I'd say he did maybe 7/8 of it. That's my opinion.
So how do we get back? So is it our responsibility to develop Americans, or is it the city?
No, it's the city's job, so please talk to us. Please
So
talk to
this
us.
is my question. So my question is,
And you can write us as well. One of your neighbors wrote me and I wrote them. But if I could just focus on Jose's question real quick, this is really your budget. So, the grounds maintenance is 18 of the 30. Okay, and then the electricity and the water and the other things, and then you got the balance and then the reserve. So it's not 30,000 just for pulling weeds and trimming trees. It's only 18. So anyway, and we're rebidding this. We're going to find a new contractor or improve the one we have. This wasn't bid, frankly. It fell in our lap, and so we used the landscaper and used it before in the second district. And you know how to do this. Hold this over until we can bid this properly and get it done. So we'll have a chance to select a contractor who specifically bids on your development as opposed to the temporary solution we have now. So that's one answer I have for you. But please call it right. That's good. One of your neighbors wrote me and was pleased to get my written response. So I'm happy to write that.
so I have,
The developer should have put up a development bond, correct?
He did.
And the city
He
told
did.
him.
He did. We're holding the bond.
The city keeps that bond until all these issues are
Absolutely.
approved.
We have all kinds of leverage.
Or we use that bond to fix what they didn't do.
Worse than that, if we call the bond for that purpose, then he won't be able to bond his next project.
Right.
So it's a huge.
So it's not like it's free and clear.
No, he's not free and clear. They're not free and clear, and that's why the roundabout's being built.
No, we still have a bond, and we still have leverage over them, we just need to, use it, turn the screw.
And we are. I know. When I got here, our public inspector was non-existent. We were finding concrete in the sewer systems in Copperwood because they knew no inspector was coming. So in the last few years, we've really stepped up, so.
so then I have a question. So I think Jose brought up a good point. If we have concerns, we see things that are not right, should we email the city? What's the city's email address? Who could be our point of contact so that we know that something's getting looked into or getting resolved?
So
Because I
Nick,
think that's been,
Nick from, manages the contract with Smith and Enright, and was out there this week with Smith and Enright pointing out weeds. So that's where the quality control is. So if it comes to City Hall, it turns into a work order and it goes to the Public Works Department, and my supervisor who manages the Smith and Enright contract, then follows up.
so then what's the email? So do we email you? Do we email Nick? I think that's been a question, because I've emailed in the past as well. And it's before I met you, and we got pushed around to different departments.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And there was really no resolving.
I think we can go right to public work. I think that's the best
Yeah, Public Works.
If they don't get it resolved,
as one,
I think then I could get probably you on.
Yeah, let me see. I'm happy to hand out next email.
So if people don't know, I think it's good though, because a lot of people don't know who to reach out to if there's something wrong, and sometimes they always call you, Dawn, right? And
Well-
you're probably not the right point of contact.
Well, it may take me a few days to get to it.
Talk to my wife and she will get there eventually.
It's either that or I'll air all our dirty laundry on that Facebook page.
There you go. So it's Public Works. So the email address is Public Works. Public Works at san-1-baptista.ca.us. Public Works.
I'll send it out to our internal system.
Thank you. More questions? I got 20 minutes.
I have major questions, and it has nothing to do with this, but it has to do with the quite a few neighbors, and I emailed code enforcement and a couple of questions, and I haven't gotten the contact. And now I think I know why. But it is an issue that I believe concerns DJ, concerns a couple of other people. On the, as you're going to Andover High, there is the property behind him, which is just a field of weeds. And now we're going into the winter time, but I was very concerned. Those weeds are, some weeds are 3, 4, 5 feet high, and nobody has done any weed abatement.
We haven't done it in 2 years.
Who enforces that? On the property?
That wall is our incorporated boundary, and that's where my authority ends.
Yeah, so
Well,
what I
But can
did,
you enforce the property owner to weed abatement?
he can't.
But I can, so,
but there's a retaining wall, there's a retaining wall right behind us with a ton of weeds that haven't
That's
been
what I'm talking
touched
about.
either.
So
And
you
that's
gotta
been
be talking
growing.
So the person you need to contact is Paul Kosmicki, who's your supervisor for this area. Who's working with, but that's just okay.
Only his wife will do it.
y'all didn't vote for John. Another person that I can talk to is the fire chief.
Yeah.
So,
Yes,
let me explain. So, on one of the calls, the fire chief was saying to call around and report people who hadn't done and they would take care of it.
Right.
I personally called about the property behind us. Nothing was done, no response. It's a huge fire hazard because it's all dry.
And that's why it's confusing, because he did say that, I was listening to the council meeting when he did say that.
Uh-huh.
And that's what confusing, okay, well, we're reporting, and how come at least, there's no email saying, hey, that's not our property, that's not our boundary?
It is for the fire chief, though. That's within his purview.
Yeah.
It is, it's a county area, so that's something that needs to be resolved. Again, last thing we need is that part to start there, and then roll over all San Juan Bautista, and then we have no more to do.
So then who's responsible for the small patch of weeds that's still within this town?
Between their property
And our
and your
property.
wall,
Yeah.
that's a good point, because there is
It's locked.
there's probably an easement or something through there. That, I don't know whose property that is.
That's technically still San Juan though. Is it? Well, yeah, but you can't take care of it.
So between our fence and the property behind us, there's 3 feet of,
Some areas are probably,
but we grow there
looks
too.
like an easement or some kind of pathway
Oh,
or something that these are.
Okay.
That's still within San Juan.
And it's a mountain.
Yeah.
I'll take my dog out there. Oh, and he gets rid of those. Yeah. The people who live out there.
Okay, so
Did you have a question?
It's okay, he just answered. It's
There's
not
nothing you can do, but I call them.
shooting.
Oh, yeah.
They're out on
There's
county property. County property is out of the city. I called the sheriff. There's nothing we can do about it. And so the sheriff did talk to them because this is probably 6 months after we moved in. I was sitting out on top of my fence watching. He's like, oh, they're shooting under the property. Like, yeah, they're shooting this way.
Yeah, I'm afraid, that's what I'm afraid of.
They're target practicing, but they're shooting this way.
That
So
they're gonna shoot me when I'm sitting on my patio.
they did talk to them. They're supposed to be shooting into the canyon, but there's nothing to do about it. County property. No, they are.
They're not maybe yet.
No,
I have a question regarding the lift station.
Yes.
So about the lift station, just by looking at these little papers, just curious. Why does the Copperleaf, neighborhood, why don't they pay for the lift that we do?
I don't have one.
They don't have it,
They're
so
not big.
for us, it's just like to get the water and all that. and
They're gravity feed into a sewer line.
Because we pump upstream and there's a
Downstream.
If we ever connected to the city of Hollister, or would we still have a lift station?
We looked at that, and yes, unfortunately, you still need one. But there's an 18-inch pipe that runs through Rancho Vista and then out to San Juan Highway. We're gonna take advantage of that and use that pipe and go to Prescott and over to Hollister. I thought that was a pipe to nowhere. So we're trying to use for it.
I thought I also saw that we should have another more powerful pump.
Yes, well, that would be part of the wastewater project. That won't be part of the assessment.
So within Rancho, I've noticed this since we started moving in, and my wife just reminded me, our fire hydrants, probably 2-3 times a week, there are trucks that come from the, I called one this morning from the farm area and pull water from our fire hydrants. Is that all above board?
So, yeah, I was out there and I thought I busted someone for stealing water. And I got back to City Hall and they have a city meter and they're going to the city meter. So they're paying the city for that water.
There's a meter on it, they're paying for it.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
so it's
the ones
okay
with
then.
Now, if they have a pipe, I mean, if they're supposed to have a water meter, then that's a violation.
Yeah, that's that.
I don't think I saw a meter. So they do it right in front of, on 3rd Street most often.
This was by the picnic benches on Third Street.
Presley, of course, they're there like every other day.
I have a
meter to change the
Oh, are you
fire.
talking
I
about?
see no meter when I see
Feels
it.
like court? You in Feels like court?
No, so basically on 3rd Street, I don't know how else to describe it, in front of the Del Rio's house. So right, not where the last 5 homes are, where Victor's house is, the middle of the street, so if you're coming out of your court and you make a right.
Yeah.
They pull water from there every other day. And I don't see a meter on the truck.
Once I did it, I did see a meter on it. Because I also, first thing I saw.
What does a meter look like?
So, as a matter of fact, I think there was one on Hillside Court at the very end.
Yeah.
There was one that was there and changed to the hydrant. It's probably about yay long and
Yeah.
looks like a, and look at pictures of the hydrant on the other end has a place where a hose can hook up to it.
So ours, yeah, so we see that they don't have that.
Well, they don't have that, then.
Usually you give it dust control, but I don't know where the water.
It looks like that. I don't know why it looks like that.
No.
That's this morning.
They don't have, it's not the pictures.
I have pictures, so I have pictures for you from this morning.
You do, okay.
I have cameras in the car. I show the full footage.
There you go.
This,
Leave it up to you.
so this,
They don't have no meter. So I think what's happening is they use the meter every once in a while. So there's some sort of like, you know, 50% hit rate, there's nobody around, nobody's watching, they don't use it.
so in the back.
So we really don't want that, because that's a lot of lost money for the city.
So the one this morning, if you read this morning, it probably it was a double wide.
We're looking at a lot of expenses for water infrastructure for the entire city, let alone Rancho Vista. And so, as far as I'm concerned, every penny counts, or every dollar counts.
So,
That's what every city.
so this is Senegal. I'm sorry, the screen's not working, but they have paying the city. and they're using city meter.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The
So
one
they
this
don't
morning
have it.
technically not.
Yeah, that's not okay. I thought I busted someone today myself. I thought I had the license plate and the business. Yeah, you can't take a picture and get the license plate. That'd be good.
I mean, it's good to know that they need a meter, right? So
Yeah.
like, we see them all the time. And we could like, right down.
That'd be great.
You got 3 police.
Yeah, if they do it once, we'll do it again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple more questions. With the stop sign, we drove by the, probably a couple of times a week. And then there's a stop sign, people just don't stop and then they just speeding through. And they don't do a 90-degree turn, they just make a little curve. So you don't have a stop sign and on the 3rd Street and on the Rancho, the Vista.
Okay, yeah.
Third and the Vista, there's the main
There is
stop
no
sign.
word for-
the street you really don't want to ever look at is north and first, but they don't even slow down sometimes.
Yeah, but we're talking about this.
And then,
So-
and then I thought that, during the July 4th, when you were looking to have a temporary camera to check for the illegal fireworks, I wonder whether we can have some temporary cameras to have people.
That's a really good question. We've established a public safety subcommittee.
Don't take it out on my route, you guys.
Traffic enforcement is not a risk issue. But the city council does have a committee looking at that, and the cameras from 4th of July were a great example of how maybe we can use more cameras in our community. So in addition to the two initiatives I shared with you, we have $100,000 set aside for public safety to focus on that. And at our last meeting, we spoke to the sheriff about their contract and lack of traffic enforcement in our city. So we're trying to come up with a plan and strategy. We have some funding set aside to possibly buy cameras or other tools. So it doesn't come out, it's not your job. Okay.
I'm here because it went
Send all the city bills.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Don't take it out of my
As
budget.
we're building a reserve at the Villa Rouge, is the money just in a savings account or is it invested or what's happening?
So the city's funds are invested in something called the Local Agency Investment Fund, LAIF. And it's a fairly conservative but safe place to put the money that most other municipalities and counties invest their reserves in.
You know, what percentage is getting back?
It was better than last year.
I think it's 1.2 now.
Yeah, about 1.2. We were doing-
Okay,
we were doing
so
pretty
it
good.
doesn't even pay for the cost of living, but
No, it doesn't, but it's, trust me, we're miles ahead. When I first started on the city council, all our money was in Union Bank.
yeah.
Union Bank was paying absolutely 0%.
Yeah.
And they then, to really piss me off, they were charging us $10,000 a year. So, at that point, the previous city, well, one of the previous city managers, the guy named Ed, and he was a good guy. And we discussed it and shoved $2 million in the right total account or whatever.
Yeah, LAIF.
Yeah. And that's a lot better place than,
Yeah.
rather than just not like Union Bank.
So not like the city of Camarillo that had it in desert.
Do we have to vote on that, or they're already automatic? You're just presenting so we know what's happening?
So that was my question. What are the next steps? And then I guess, what
Were
are
you talking about the reserve?
Yes.
The bank account?
No,
Or-
the Belarus? We're talking about the Belarus.
The breakdown you present.
Yes, okay. I'm gonna go out to bid and I'm gonna nail down, the best contract I can for your landscaping services. So if you know anyone you wanna recommend, I'm gonna take a look at the trees along the fence line, see what we can do for that. And between now and December, we'll have a better idea of what a full year of expenses look like. And so we'll have a basis for this operational, make sure we're sound with our operational budget. I think we are, because we have some wiggle room there. And then we'll talk about the reserves. So if we want to reserve a 28 or 30,000 a year, then we'll keep it at 700 and some a month or a year. Or if you want to improve and step that up, then we can talk about it.
So it does go for a vote.
It goes to about in June, every June.
Every June.
So your cycle is every June. That's why I wanted to talk about it with you in February, March, because we put all the city budget together, that this piece is included.
So for this upcoming year, those figures that you presented are already set.
Yeah, there's stuff,
It was a meeting last.
and their budget, so.
So at that time until June, we're gonna see a lot of changes, results, and the city, I mean, in our community.
Well, what kind of changes would you like to see, sir?
Changes or stuff.
I'm sorry, what would you like to see?
You say that in June, that, I mean, in June, they're gonna decide the money raise, right?
Every year, so for the past 2 years.
February, you're gonna have a meeting.
Right.
To this day, to June, we're gonna see better results about landscaping, sites, and all that stuff, changes, and people working and put the money to work.
You're gonna see some improvement. This meeting has caused me in particular to pay closer attention, so I'm working with Nick, and we'll go out to bid and find a better contractor. But no, it's a maintenance district, so we're gonna be maintaining things, replacing dead plants and so forth. I did see a few dead trees, but. So, what would be a world of difference? Frankly, I think the neighborhood's in pretty good shape.
Weeds be gone on the sides.
Yeah, I think that's our biggest
I
concern,
think
it's
they
the
should-
weeds, right? The
they should be
maintenance
gone
of
by
the
far.
weeds, taking care of the
I
plant.
was complaining about the neighbor, Rancho way, the mailbox there. Oh, wait, this, oh,
The mailboxes are included in the
right
new
there.
assignment.
And this morning, somebody cleaned it, but I was complaining about, I was thinking it was the neighbor, but they were there cleaning it. We clean all sides.
No, it was
I mean-
Smith and Enron.
So, I mean, while they're waiting, give it the ladies who got it off the mail, give it to go along. Because of the issue.
That's a
The
result of
weeds
this
is all
meeting.
out.
Those weeds being cut, it was a direct result of this meeting. So they're gonna continue to cut those weeds. And if they're not, let us know. Sir? I'm sorry.
I thought, John, I think I sent you an email in July about that. There's a sidewalk that was incomplete at the entrance to the, right around the project. My question is, when, so you said that they will begin next week, when do you think it will complete that route? And is that piece of concrete, that missing piece of sidewalk will be part of the project?
Yes, it will, and it'll take about 12 weeks, depending on the weather. Yeah. So just quick, so if the weather allows us, it'll be done by January.
Are they closing First Street completely? Or did that get sold?
That got set up. One lane will be open at all times. And they should be working on the weekends, and they shouldn't be working early in the morning or in the afternoon, so.
So should alternate, but they should let, like 20 cars go and then shut it off and 20 cars from the other way go, and that'll switch back and forth.
And there won't be anybody using that as a drag strip or.
No.
Every single
It's
one.
at Monterey Street and all the other streets are gonna be completed.
So, the weeds in front of the mailbox that we talked about are gonna, the big, I call it a mess, bird reserve, whatever the hell it is. Out in the middle there.
Habitat?
The habitat, you said they're gonna put a fence in there, but is that
No,
gonna be
gate.
again?
They're putting a gate in so they can go and cut the weeds.
Awesome.
Is that gonna stay like that, all the weeds and all that, stay like that forever?
Somebody might, throw some wildflower seeds in there when you put it in.
Right, so retention basins are generally left to the natural,
There's no maintenance, there's no, nothing like that.
well, that's why I've asked that we go in and cut the weeds, and then I learned that there's no gates or no access for equipment, so.
Because it does inhibit the flow a lot down in there, and I think that's why there's a lot of the overflow on First Street / 129 going to Anthar. Particularly when you go down from Rancho Vista, you get to that curve that heads out towards Fruittown Farms, that couple hundred feet before that curve, it floods completely. On a heavy rainstorm, it floods really bad. So
There's that, and kids playing with natural.
it's in the county, so,
We're not talking about that.
Okay. I'm
We're
sorry.
talking about next to the playground,
Oh,
there's a thinner area there that's good weeds, and it's, they considered a wildlife habitat area?
yeah, I was talking about, but what I'm saying is the weeds slow the flow down and causes things to overflow.
So the retention basin should have native species in it, that die in the fall and come back when they get wet.
That's a retention basin, which is greater than correct, I'm talking about. On the other side of the road. Next to the playground. Is that a detention basin also?
No, that's where the creek runs past, along the other side of Shore Side.
No, right in,
In front of the playground, where the exercise equipment is,
Yeah,
that area.
so that area is what I'm considering.
there's two retention,
Am I correct on that?
there's two retention ponds.
That area, we talked about this, right?
Right, they're both retention.
That area.
So there's a big manhole there and a big concrete thing, and right now there's standing water behind it. So it wouldn't take much rain to cause that water to go to the top again, which happens, so that's something that I need
But
to.
there's a, I've seen a lot of rodents in there.
That area could very well be part of the green building, California issue that all developers have to do.
No, but there's a maintenance to it. There's maintenance to it.
No, I didn't say it wasn't maintenance to it, I said there, because it's probably part of the green building code. The developers have to meet down
And that's fine, yeah, we're correct, but it has to be maintained. There shouldn't be weeds growing out of the mountain.
I don't know if it's part of the green building code, but I'd say it's part of the stormwater code.
It's required, state of California, it's required in all.
Part of this list is part of the TCM material, yes.
And that's what we're seeing by the state. Watermore, who's really well familiar with.
Well, you're right, it doesn't need to be managed, it needs to be cleaned out periodically.
One last one here before we go. Okay, so just one more time. So again, when we, at the beginning of the meeting, you said that there were certain things in there that shouldn't have been in our, mellow roofs.
No, I'm normally, I can't say should or should.
Okay, well, either way, let's just say we want to kick, yeah, the usual. Let's say we do want to kick some of those out, some of those items. And let's just say that is in our budget or whatever our mellow roof. Does the city pick up on that tab, or who's gonna pick up on that if something does go wrong? Like, if I kick it out and then it turns out like, oops, like something happens, now does the city fix it, or we just kind of F up?
That's a good question.
City would fix it at their discretion, not designated money for us anymore.
Because if there's things in there that we shouldn't be paying for, I don't want to pay for it, right? But if something were to go wrong, you know, like an incident happens, then obviously I still want to fix.
Well,
You know what I mean? But I don't want to be paying for something we shouldn't be paying in the first place.
No, it,
So if I could read between the lines of what Don
Unless
said,
you can say one thing.
if I can read between the lines of what he's saying, the city doesn't have funds to fix all this stuff, so if we want action and things to be fixed, it sounds like we have a more than comprehensive list of things that are
and the
covered in our list, and to get action on them, leave those in there and expect it to be fixed.
Yeah,
For the time and
so to your
manpower.
point, AJ, you're in better shape with your control of your own destiny.
Yep.
Than
If
you
they're
are
not
now.
fixed, then you can complain.
Got
So
it.
next year first.
On the back of the
All right,
line.
cool. That was all I needed.
I'll be your go-to person.
All right, thank you. Have a good one.